What's going on, guys? ShadowNinja here, and today we have a Titan Prismatic build. I have shitted on Prismatic, especially for the Titans. Hunters, it is incredible. Warlocks, it is incredible compared to the counterpart of Titans. It's just god awful for Titans. There is no viability. There is no reason to use this in content that matters. That means Grandmasters, difficult encounters in a raid, even some dungeons out there. But we got a build, we'll make it work. But before we jump into that, there's a few things I have to say. For one, if you guys enjoy the content, please consider hitting that subscribe button and bell to be notified for when I do drop more content. And if you guys want to pull this build for yourself, dim link down below in the pinned comment, as well as in the description, so you guys can pull the build and dim and use it and have fun as much as you can. So for one, I just want to say this: Prismatic needs a lot of work on Titan. And while this does look incredible and it is fun to a degree, it is fun in content that I wouldn't consider challenging. So that means not a Grandmaster, not even a Master Nightfall. When it comes to Salvation's Edge, for example, the most recent raid, I would probably only use this in Encounter 1, which is the entrance encounter, whatever you want to call it, and then Encounter 3, which is similar to Encounter 1, but more ad-based. But even then, I sway, maybe not, but there is some parts of this build that should allow you to survive some more when it comes to giving you guys restoration. Also, the main exotic is Stoicism, an exotic class item that has random rolls. I think I might put a graph or image here on screen, but these are the rolls you can get, and the specific role I have is Spirit of Severance and Spirit of Star Eater. Spirit of Severance is basically Severance and Closure, so powered melee final blows and finishers unleash explosions, and Spirit of Star Eater Orbs of Power overcharge your super, so it makes Hammer Soul, which is my super choice, somewhat viable. Not that much, but somewhat viable. And then Spirit of Severance honestly has incredible just kind of up juice for the concentration melee that we will be using and paired with Blade's Fury or Blade of Fury, whatever the strand one is called. Another thing to mention is that if for whatever reason you guys don't have an exotic class item that is either like this or worth using, the Spirit of Inmost Light is another one that is pretty good with this, or Spirit of Synthoceps is another good one. You guys can use Loreley or Synthoceps, even Wishful Ignorance as potential, different choices. Those are just some exotics that are preferred to be used in this case based on what we will be showing. Loreley will have some great synergy with the Solar Barricade that you will be using since you're using Hammer of Soul. Just make sure you switch out the air juke or whatever it's called. You'll see when we get in there. And then Synthoceps, Wishful Ignorance, they're just great for uptick when it comes to your melee in one way, whether it's Frenzy Blade or just overall damage to your melee. Those are some good ones there, but overall I prefer if you have a class item that either has Spirit of Synthoceps, Spirit of Inmost Light, Spirit of Severance, and or Spirit of Star Eater. So yeah, we got some of that information out the way, and we talked about how this build is fun, just not overall meta. Let's jump into the game and talk about the build so you guys can see for yourself exactly what we're doing. So here is my Prismatic Titan, and here is the drip. Honestly, I am not gonna lie, even though I do crap on Prismatic, I think this is an incredible look, and I do think Prismatic allows for some interesting stuff. Yes, I did buy the ornament for the class item. It is god awful without it, and this makes it somewhat likable. Its shader is fine, or at least somewhat fine. But yeah, leave a comment down below if you have any comments on the drip itself. Usually don't do this, but when it comes to stats, preferably if you guys want to just give yourself max restoration, cool. That is the first and foremost. After that, honestly guys, strength here would be your best friend. Prismatic doesn't have a, I guess you could say, melee regen aspect, or I guess you could say fragment-ish, or specifically an elemental buff to help you with your melee regen rate, and you are going to be using the longest duration powered melee right now for this class item. So you're going to want to up that strength a good bit, and you'll see with some of the mods you're going to want to do some other stuff. So if you guys can double stack anything here, I will highly recommend it's resilience first, and you get your strength max, depending on how much armor you have and what you have in your vaults. Depends on how flexible you could get to a max strength stat, but this is one of the few times I'm ever going to say maximize that strength as much as you can. So with that out the way, let's jump into the subclass and talk about the details with the aspects and fragments. Yeah, this is what we are using. Now for one, this is a little bit different. We are using the thruster class ability. The barricade isn't really used much, and the thruster is pretty damn fun. I even have a mod on, I believe. I may have to put it on. It may not be on right now. But basically, when I use my class ability in their enemies, my next final blow with a weapon will basically generate an overpower, guaranteed, which is nice when you see the Kvostov and generating tons of orbs. The thruster class ability is fun, is viable. Not a barricade, not really a fan of barricade. I do think Titans have a weaker class ability in PvE, but that's just my personal thought. High lift is my personal preference of jump. We are using Frenzy Blade. It's going to give us 3 max charges of a powered melee. If you guys are using Wishful Ignorance, then you will get 4, which allows for 4 consecration shots. The Shackle Grenade is going to be the grenade of choice. The other grenades, guys, I just don't see another reason to use this. Also, with Transcendence, some of the main goal here is to get Transcended as soon as possible. Shackle Grenade actually gives you a lot of energy, or at least feels like a lot of energy for a darkness. It's way better than the Glacier Grenade, especially since we can't run through it. But yeah, Shackle Grenade, pretty damn good. Aspects. Number 1, Consecration. This is going to be our main way of doing melees. You pretty much just, when sliding, activate your charge melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets, and when you land it from the airborne, you basically cause an ignition, and there's 3 fragment slots here when it comes to Consecration. So this is pretty good. Also has Unstoppable Champion synergy in there if for whatever reason you want to take it where champions exist. And then next to that, we have Knockout. This is a good aspect. Critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your arc melee attack with arc energy and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. Defeating targets with melee attacks makes you amplified and restores portion of your health. Defeating more powerful combatants increases the amount of health restored. This is going to be great with synergy. Also important to mention, didn't mention this before, we are using Hammer of Soul. Like I said, this is really important since with Prismatic, your elemental buff will be tied, or what you get from an Orb of Power with one of the fragments will be tied to your super of choice. So this is solar, tied to getting restoration. But yeah, Knockout, Consecration, great. Helps with survivability. Hammer of Soul, make sure it's your preference so you can get an elemental debuff or elemental buff specifically that is restoration. So let's jump into the fragments. First one, Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. This is very nice and very good. Facet of Purpose, picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield based on the super type of your equipped super. Hence why we're going with Hammer Soul. Basically, it will give us restoration. We'll be generating so many orbs with Kvostov and Kinetic Siphons. It is absurd. Plus the melee we'll be doing and generating orbs there. It's going to help us a ton when it comes to survivability and really just making the most out of this build in terms of the survivability aspect, allowing you to do some fun stuff with Consecration and Frenzy Blade. Next to that, we have Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. So in this case, our Consecration, rapidly defeating, will grant melee energy, and then rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. So Frenzy Blade is darkness, will generate grenade energy for whatever reason, and then light will be melee energy. Next to that, we have Facet of Dawn. Basically, since we're doing a lot of punching, we want to go Radiant. And Facet of Dawn, basically power melee hits against targets, makes you Radiant. Power melee final blows make you and nearby allies Radiant. Very good. And then when it comes to Facet of Grace, defeating targets with kinetic weapons, this will be a Kvostov in this case, grants you bonus Transcendence energy. Defeating targets with your super grants you and nearby allies bonus Transcendent energy. So that is pretty much the fragments. When it comes to mods, we are rocking 2 Kinetic Siphons and hands-on. For arms, we're rocking Font of Vigor to help with our strength regeneration rate, or at least our melee regeneration. Momentum Transfer and Heavy-Handed will be the other mods. For our chests, we have melee damage resistance since we're getting up close, charge up for an extra armor charge in our inventory, and then sniper damage resistance just for some of those long-range menaces out there. For our legs, we have 2 kinetic weapon surges and invigoration. For our melee regeneration, you pick up an orb, you get a little bonus there. And then for our class item, in this case our exotic, we have 1-2 finisher to help with some of that regen if we need it. You guys can switch off to special finisher if you guys are rocking some special ammo and you want some of that. Font of Restoration, just to keep us going with some restoration. In my personal preference, we have 30 here. Unfortunately, I like more than that, but 30 it is. And then we are doing Reaper, which is the mod that I said when you use your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an overpower, at least shortly after using your class ability. But yeah, that's the mods. The loadout will be the Kvostov. This is an incredible exotic, like so damn good. It is probably the best PvE exotic in the game. Indebted Kindness is going to be our special of choice. Also rocket assisted frame sidearm, incredible, broken. And then we are using a strand machine gun. Personal preference right now, circular logic. It's just my go-to favorite in the game. You could use the other one, that is the Pale Heart, has a good origin trait that pairs great with your super. Before we go, it is very important to mention the artifact for this episode, Echoes. There are basically a couple that are really important. First and foremost, Transference, gain increased grenade and melee energy while Transcendence. This is incredible. Weapon final blows while Transcendent. Refund light and dark energy after Transcendence ends. Helps with the Transcendence keeping up as much as possible in terms of always proccing it, or at least having it procced as soon as possible. After that, Shield Crush is another good one. Well, you could use this otherwise. Shield Crush is basically when you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, and a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. We can't really utilize the top part, but the bottom part, while you are amplified or radiant, you have your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. Next to that, we have Radiant Orb. So every time you pick up an orb, so whether you're solar or prismatic, basically an orb of power makes you radiant. And then we have Galvanic Armor. While you have Arc and Prismatic, subclass equipped, incoming damage from commands is reduced while amplified. This is really, really helpful when it comes to just some survivability and other stuff that I may have not talked about in the overall build. But yeah, those are the 4 you really want. But overall, that is the artifact. Let's jump out and give you guys my closing thoughts. So yeah, it's not going to be the absolute greatest build compared to Banner of War or Solar. We've talked about the lack of power as a Titan main. It is frustrating to see how far behind we may have fallen. We have our builds, don't get me wrong, but still Strand, Banner of War, and Solar are really good and still the go-to in this case. Prismatic is fun, especially if you're doing most content, but where it gets challenging is where you may want to avoid some stuff. But overall, leave your thoughts down below on this build. Yeah, dim link in the pinned comment description so you guys can pull it. Overall, yeah, drop a comment. Let's see your thoughts on this and your thoughts of Titan Prismatic. Maybe you have your own build you may want me to check out, or give me some tips and recommendations of maybe something else I should be keeping an eye on. I know Knockout and Consecration is kind of a very, very, very common combo because those aspects are not really good. But yeah, we'll see how things go. We'll see if I am able to make another Prismatic build video. I should be. There's some intriguing stuff, but overall nothing too incredible here with Prismatic. But hopefully this build's fun and you guys enjoy it. But if you guys enjoyed this video and found this video informative, be sure to drop this video a like. Helps out the video a ton. And for more content from me, like I said earlier, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell to be notified when I do drop more content. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say in this one. Hope you guys have a good one. ShadowNinja here, and I'm out.